Most of the people in our community came to know Dwight Morgan as Bicycle Bob.
He was recognized around town almost like a celebrity would be.
I arrived on scene. It's Dwight Morgan. He's dead. It was a tragedy.
There's blood all over him.
His left finger had been taken by the killer.
Who in the world could do that to Dwight? It would seem like an animal thing to do.
You've got a stone killer planning to do this again.
Never talked about somebody messing with them. If you want to help, this is your chance.
We have to find a murderer within the whole cast of characters in this tragedy.
He accuses me of just the weirdest stuff.
He seemed very much like a sociopath.
What I told y'all, that is what happened.
Could we have arrested the wrong guy?
I know you did it. I know for a fact you did it.
This is possibly a false confession.
Yes, this man is found a dead body.
Okay, he's definitely not conscious, or?
He went to check on him and he said he was dead. He said there's blood all over him.
I was a patrolman working second shift, 3 in the afternoon. When the call came out to me, I arrived on scene, made contact with a couple that called us. They were over near the railroad tracks when this gentleman, identified as Travis Jim, approached. He just kept saying, "He's dead, he's dead, he's dead," over there in the alleyway. I waited for another supporting unit to show up. They stayed with Travis Jim. Those were walking down in the alleyway. It was real grisly. I instantly recognized who it was. It's Dwight Morgan, and his throat's been slit. He's dead.
Most of the people in our community came to know Dwight Morgan as Bicycle Bob.
He was recognized around town almost like a celebrity would be.
They called him Bicycle Bob because he always had his bike with him. That was his only transportation.
Bob came into our worship service one time, and as the choir sang, he pulled out 2 spoons, and he started playing the spoons with the choir. That light was present wherever he went.
Dwight chose to be homeless. He could have lived in a home. He would go to the bank each month, deposit his check, and friends and all of us, I think, would have helped Dwight figure that out. He didn't want help like that. He wanted his life as it was, but everyone in the community was looking out for Dwight.
He was just one of those guys that I'd always kind of gravitated to and checked on, just like a lot of officers do.
It was a tragedy that a man who'd never bothered anybody else go out that way. He was a nice guy.
My initial thoughts when I got the call, this is a homeless guy, no witnesses that we knew of. He was in an alley. It happened potentially overnight. How in the world are we going to find out who did this?
When you first arrive on scene, you have to step back, look at the big picture. Many times it can tell a story. The extent of his injuries included stab wounds in excess of, well, there were hundreds. It was evident that multiple items were used as a weapon, and we collected a hammer that was broken with blood on it. His left finger had been cut off, and it appeared to have been taken intentionally by whoever the killer was. It was the most brutal homicide I've ever worked.
There's well-documented cases about people that commit murder and collect trophies from the scene, from their victims, and rarely have I heard of them only doing it once. This really had the makings to be something bigger than just one poor victim.
If we fail at our job, then somebody can die.
You have to move swiftly, and you have to move with conviction and vigor to find out what in the world has happened.
Travis Jim was the person that had found Dwight Morgan in the alley, so we brought him back to the station to interview him.
Travis Jim was a local homeless man. We had arrested him several times for very low-level type of stuff.
They actually collected his clothes and put him in a jumpsuit to preserve any potential evidence.
When do you think you met Dwight? Oh, maybe it was a month ago. He's a real cool guy, you know. He showed me where he lived over there. He didn't never talk about nobody messing with him.
I had a good rapport initially with Travis Jim. He wasn't a suspect at that point, but we thought we could get additional information and put together a timeline of when this murder actually occurred.
Tell me about last night. What's the deal with? Oh, I was drinking with some friends. Got some Keystones. And then I went to the buildings that they found Dwight at. Yeah. I walked in between them because I was going to see if he was there. And okay. So he wasn't there. And I went over to Walgreens. I was so drunk. I got arrested. What was that for? Public intoxication. Okay.
One of our officers actually arrested him at about 11:30, the night before Dwight was found for public intox. At the time, we thought that was probably the night of the murder. He stayed all night in our jail cell and was released the following morning.
I woke up this morning. I thought, maybe I go see Dwight, see what he's up to. And I got over there. It was real bloody, and I ran. No, here I am. Here I am. I mean, I had nothing to do with that.
He's admitting that he went to the crime scene the night before. It doesn't seem like that was a coincidence, so I wanted to make sure he wasn't involved. Using the polygraph.
Oftentimes in these cases, some of the things we use to eliminate people is a polygraph. Would you be willing to do that? Yes, I'm trying to get out of here as quick as possible. We'll get started. All right, fair enough.
I passed Travis off to the polygraph examiner, and his demeanor did change. He was more nervous in nature. Is he scared what the test is going to show?
Before 2009, did you ever hurt anyone as a means of getting even with him?
No.
Did you cause those injuries to Dwight?
No. What I did? What?
You did just what you thought you would do, Travis. That was not good. The results were awful.
It was not a good test for him, and it showed deception.
What happened?
There's something I can never see myself doing. I'm scared because I blacked out this stuff.
Because of the alcohol and blacking out, his story evolved, and then he told us what he thought he remembered.
I'll tell you the truth right now. It's just I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me.
It was almost like a relief to him that he was able to talk about it. Then when questioned further, everything came out.
You have this whole new cast of characters that comes out of nowhere.
So I can't see innocent and you go to jail for something you didn't do.
It's almost like reopening the case entirely.
It could have been a false confession.
He accuses me of just the weirdest stuff.
Well, I told y'all, that is what happened.
What in the world? Where's he coming from?
I was absolutely floored.
Dwight Morgan was brutally murdered. It turns out Travis Jim was the first person to find him, and after he showed deception on a polygraph, Travis began making admissions.
Here's what we're going to do, okay? I'm just going to sit in here with you, okay? What I need from you, and it is extremely important, okay, for you to be completely honest.
Mark has this presence about him, very patient, calm, and once he gets on that path and he gets you in that interview room, he's going to get it.
I laid down on this mat and was, I was just real drunk and everything, and he snuck up on me. The knife was right there, and it's real dark, so I just started, sponging the knife. Is there any doubt in your mind that you are the person responsible for why we're here today, the death of Dwight Morgan? I'm the one who did it. You stabbed him. I stabbed him.
It was a shock to hear, because again, we had dealt with him in a violent capacity.
Okay. Go ahead and stand up, take that one for me. Get your punch back here.
Edmond investigators are trying to determine how a homeless man died.
Dwight Morgan, better known around the area as Bicycle Bob, was murdered.
The news of Dwight's death spread quickly, especially among downtown merchants.
When I heard the news about Dwight, I was devastated. I kept thinking how scared he must have been, and how he just didn't ever hurt anyone. He just wanted good.
Yeah, I miss Dwight. He was a good man. He didn't deserve what he got.
When we lost Bob, really a light went out in our community. We had his funeral here at the church, and over 300 people showed up there.
Dwight Morgan's pallbearers were uniformed police officers, and I was one of them. As fate would have it, this was the first case for me as a detective, and we have a job to do.
If somebody says they did it, we still have to prove it because someone can always recant later.
We're not just going to let you say, I committed a murder, and then lock you up and send you to trial. We're going to have to find supporting evidence of that. So for a jury, you've got to be able to link it all together, and that's how you get your conviction.
The problems came the days following. We had an officer that saw Dwight crossing the street heading to his campsite around 11 o'clock. That didn't fit in our timeline of Travis committing the murder before he was arrested at 11:30, about a mile and a half away. If it occurred overnight, then Travis didn't do it. He said he did it, but it didn't happen because he was in our jail. He's accounted for. That was our dilemma. And so myself and another detective went a couple days later to interview Travis, Jim again.
You keep saying it happened the night before. Is that what you're still saying?
It had to have been because I was asked.
No. It didn't happen the night before.
It happened that morning.
Does that make sense to you? Did I say that?
That changes everything. I mean, everything now I couldn't have done it.
He made that statement of, then I couldn't have done it. And in my mind, I thought, I'm not sure you did. It could have been a false confession because Travis Jim was in a blackout state the night we thought Dwight Morgan was murdered.
That changes everything now. I mean, I wish now to have a turning point.
Travis asked for a lawyer, so that kind of shut down asking additional questions. Even though it seemed like Travis had falsely confessed. It's not like you just make a call and say, hey, time to get out.
He was already charged with murder.
And I'm not 100% sure Travis Jim didn't do it. It's possible that murder happened that following morning when he got released from our jail. So we still got some work to do to disprove his confession.
The stakes can't be bigger. Evidently, this could have been an innocent man in jail. And more importantly, you've got a stone killer out on the street who may or may not be planning to do this again. So it's almost like reopening the case entirely.
About 3 weeks following finding Dwight in the alley, I received a phone call first thing in the morning from a patrol officer saying there's a guy at the station that says he knows information about who killed Dwight Morgan. And that's when I was introduced to Sean Parker. Sean was very nervous, anxious, and I wondered why that was.
Tell me why you're here, man. Because I can't see innocent and you go to jail for something you didn't do.
I just thought it'd be good, you know? What am I getting ready to hear? And what he told me was so far out there, it was hard for me to even wrap my head around.
I look over and I see this clot. It's just full of blood. And I'm like, what is that? So yeah, it's a finger.
We learned Travis Jim's story could have been a false confession. And then Sean Parker began telling me, you arrested the wrong guy.
I knew who killed Bicycle Bob. Okay, well, tell me about it. His name's Connor Mason. He's my wife's friend. I've only known him for a couple weeks. I mean, I've been telling her from the beginning that he really likes you. There's something more than just a friendship or a connection there. He really likes you.
Sean Parker was married to Heather Parker at the time, but we learned Heather had a relationship with Connor Mason in high school, and that continued.
It was a Sunday morning. He showed up. He was kind of quiet. And I get like this bag rattling, so I kind of look over and I see this glove. It's just full of blood. Then he hands something to my wife, and she starts getting like all excited. And I'm like, "What is that?" She's like, "It's a finger, hon." I'm like, "A finger?" She's like, "Yeah, it's a finger." I was like, "Is that a real finger or a fake finger?" Connor goes, "Well, it all depends. Are you going to call the cops or not?" I was ripping. I didn't know what to do.
Sean told us how on that same Sunday, when we started investigating Dwight's death, Connor presents this finger to his high school sweetheart, Heather. It says, "This gift is for you."
Murdering someone and severing part of their body to present as a quote-unquote love offering, it was just absolutely mind-blowingly sick.
What happened to the finger? He threw it away. Just in the trash? In a random dumpster. And Heather's like sitting right next to me, and he's sitting on the couch. And he said whenever he went to the homeless guy, he saw a hammer laying next to him. So he decided to do it with the hammer until the hammerhead flew off. And then he got out his knife and finished him off with a knife. And I guess cut his finger off to bring it to my wife for a present.
Some of the information seemed very consistent with what we knew. Details of the murder that weren't released to the public. Sean also told us the dynamics of the group.
Connor Mason had a group of friends here in the Edmond area that kind of lived together, maybe-ish, kind of flopping around in each other's apartments.
They're 19, 20-year-old kids. Sean was, I think, 10 years plus older than that whole group.
So we really needed to interview Heather Parker and find out, is there substance to Sean's story, or is he just making something up? Because he was actually involved in this incident.
Did you hear about the homeless guy?
Bicycle Bob? Yeah.
Sean told me Connor came over the day that we discovered the body and was talking to you guys about being maybe responsible for the death.
No, that's not true. He accuses me of just, I don't know, there's just the weirdest stuff. Like, he's very threatened by Connor being in my life.
Sean was scared he was going to lose his wife to Connor Mason. If he could get Connor out of the picture and send him to prison, then he'd have Heather. Is it possible that Sean's trying to pin this murder on Connor? Did Sean actually do it? At that point, Sean actually became a suspect.
So it came down to where we really needed to sit down with Connor and get the story from him.
Sean came in this morning, provided us with some information. You may have had some physical evidence related to the murder of Bicycle Bob.
I went down there to see her, but I didn't. No. I knew Sean was mad at me. And, threatened. Heather said she threatened my life, even.
Connor was an interesting character. He was soft-spoken. He was pretty laid back during the interview. He didn't come off that he was trying to be deceptive.
He says he doesn't like the way I looked at her. The emotional.
He doesn't know that y'all have been physical.
No, he doesn't know that we have sex.
So he just put you in the middle of Detective Oak's investigation here because you're glancing sideways at this girl.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Between those 3 interviews, there still wasn't any definitive information about who actually committed the murder. I had basically 2 investigations. I had the new group, if you will, and then Travis Jim. But things just weren't adding up with Travis. And I believe one of these kids had something to do with this brutal killing.
We're not going to send the wrong guy to jail. We're going to send someone to jail, but it's not going to be the wrong guy.
Sean's account of what happened was inconsistent with the others, so we had to get him to clarify the truth.
So what's new? Nothing really, all except for Heather moved out, and she's making me trying to seem like I'm crazy. I mean, because what I told y'all, that is what happens.
Based on all the circumstances up to that point, I couldn't rule him out of anything.
If I ask you, I mean, did you participate in the murder of Dwight Morgan?
No, sir. No, sir. So,
and there's no way to corroborate what you're saying. I need something to help me corroborate what you're telling me.
And I have nothing.
And what can you do for me?
I have nothing.
I asked Sean if he'd be willing to wear a wire to audio record a conversation between him and Heather. But if she finds out that he's wired, we're putting him in a dangerous situation. I don't know what his response is going to be.
Yes. I won't do anything to prove my innocence.
So with the wire, our hope was that we would either get Heather to somehow make admissions to her involvement or Connor's involvement and clear Sean from the investigation, or find out that he actually was part of this ongoing plot. The interview was set up to take place at a storage facility.
I mean, the hardest thing I'm trying to figure out is how to get inside her head.
Try the angle of, if I wouldn't have gone to the police, what he's doing.
We were in unmarked cars around the facility to make sure we can keep him as safe as possible.
You know, Heather, I can't stop thinking about you. If I would have never went to the police about any of this, do you think we'd still be together?
I can't trust you.
You can't trust me for doing the right thing?
You don't understand. I don't consider what you did the right thing.
So if I would have been like, oh, hey, Heather, let me see the finger and touch the finger and hold it and all this, that we'd be cool right now?
I think you were jealous because Connor did this for me.
To me, that was just as golden as her saying, yeah, he did it. It was at that point where I was kind of like, there's something to this. I think Heather and Connor were involved, and we got some work to do to find Dwight Morgan's killer. Sean Parker was willing to meet with Heather, his wife, and be wired to prove that Connor Mason killed Dwight Morgan. The interview was set up to take place at a storage facility.
I think you were jealous because Connor did this for me.
So you're saying he went and killed the guy for you?
I'm just saying he did something.
I mean, that is huge. The wire was probably the most important for getting us on track with really believing Sean. He was trying to do the right thing.
Connor thought he had the perfect murder until he met me. I could tell that he liked my wife, and that's why he went ahead and tried to really entice her. But how could you be so insane to fall for someone who would murder for you? From the second he handed her the finger, I knew she was gone. It just blew my mind. She pretty much moved in with Connor and all his friends after that. Of course, there was a feeling that she had betrayed me, but while wearing a wire, I felt like I was a terrible husband. I was nervous that she would see the wire, but every little word that Heather would say that was somewhat incriminate Connor, I was hoping that they wouldn't realize that I'd been telling the truth this whole time.
I believed him as not being further involved. I'm glad he came in. He did the right thing.
I knew that if I didn't go to the cops, eventually more people would end up turning up dead, because Connor and his roommates wanted to start a killing club, and from what I've been told, Connor wanted to kill at least 50 people and then write a book about it. And I didn't want him to kill anyone else.
We didn't have a lot of physical evidence, so we needed statements from the people within the group in order to make an arrest.
Because they were a close-knit pack, the thinking at the time was that, well, if we can get one of these dominoes to fall, then the rest of them naturally will just collapse.
The person that came to the front was Thomas Jen.
Do you know why you're here? No, you said you want to talk to me about my friends.
Thomas, to me, was the key. My goal in going in, get him to talk about the people he associated with that linked them to the crime.
Has anybody in that house ever talked about what it'd be like to kill somebody? I think they might have, but I don't think they would act on it. I think it's appealing to some people because it's like a taboo thing.
What do you know about the murder of the homeless guy here?
From just what I've read in the newspapers.
The body language of the suspect is absolutely key because some behaviors will show deceptiveness.
Are they looking down every time they answer a question? That's probably a red flag for me.
Sean, he's pointing the finger at your buddy, Connor.
But I don't see Connor doing that.
And you had no involvement in this at all?
He was lacking in eye contact. You could sense that he wasn't telling everything.
I'd really feel more comfortable if I had my lawyer with me.
Call him, have him come up. We're in the middle of a murder investigation. Now, if you want to help, this is your chance.
Once Thomas asked for a lawyer, the interview was done. He didn't have to talk to me. That might be the last time we were going to get to talk to him.
But
you want to call him?
Not right now. I really like to get out of here.
Okay.
It was frustrating. I'm thinking these 19-year-old kids had done something horrible, and we were just reaching these roadblocks. We potentially had the wrong person in jail. And we're working diligently to try to get him exonerated from his own confession. So we went out and talked to Thomas's mother and tried to convince her that it was in his best interest to tell us what he knew.
I wanted Dwight to get justice in this case because he didn't deserve to die that way. I would drive by his campsite to and from work. Now it's like that's where Dwight was murdered, so it was a little difficult to process.
I believe in forgiveness, but I also believe you got to pay the price. I just wondered who in the world could do that to Dwight. It would seem like an animal thing to do.
But they're still violent people, and they're still out there doing who knows what else.
It was that following morning that I got the call, and Thomas said he wanted to come back in. Mom had the mother power. I was like, yes.
What else do you have to say?
Okay. Connor asked one of our friends, Dan, to take him somewhere. He didn't tell anybody where he was going. Like an hour passed by, and they came back. Connor was really excited, really happy, and when I looked at his face, there's some specks of blood on his face.
And that's when the case broke wide open. Connor Mason had a group of friends. All of them lived in the same apartment. Nicholas Kerr lived in the apartment. Thomas Jen lived in the apartment. And Daniel North was a high school friend. They were all hanging out the night of the murder. One of these kids, Thomas Jen, just went on to tell us everything.
Connor was really excited to tell me that he had killed a homeless guy with a hammer and a knife. He had gone to Walmart and bought a buck knife. He actually told me it had broken because he stabbed him in the skull and the tip broke off. And I think Nick might have helped him get rid of it. He proceeded to pull out of his pocket a plastic glove that had a finger in it.
Everything Thomas is saying, it was totally consistent with what we knew. The timeline, everything worked. Based on the admissions, we were able to obtain video evidence of Connor purchasing the buck knife from the local Walmart.
We got some great information from Thomas Jens, and that gives us more things to ensnare the remaining co-conspirators.
According to Thomas Chin, Daniel North drove Connor Mason to the scene.
There was an apartment, and he used to live there, and he said that he had to get some clothes or some stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll do a favor.
Connor had lived in an apartment about a block and a half away from Dwight's campsite.
I just waited in the car.
How long was he gone? Any idea?
He was gone for quite a while. Shouldn't have taken him that long.
Did you see him go in the apartment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you're telling me everything. You don't look like the guy that wants to take a fall for some friends.
He had a plastic mask, which I didn't think he would need for getting stuff out of the apartment. He got back in the car. He had the mask on.
Daniel drove them back to their apartment, and then Connor proceeds to tell everybody in this heightened sense of euphoria he just killed Dwight Morgan. There was no doubt in my mind that we had the right person. It was an amazing feeling for me.
Do not make any calls to anybody in that group.
I will not.
Now we gotta go to work. At the time we thought Connor Mason was at his work at a local Circle K. So we actually sent detectives out fairly quickly. We had search warrants for Connor's apartment. We were looking for the finger, we were looking for latex gloves, and the murder weapon, the buck knife.
We collected numerous journals that specifically talked about killing. It certainly painted a picture as far as how they think.
Anything we collected was sent off to be tested for DNA evidence. And now we still had interviews to conduct. Thomas Chin told us Connor Mason went back to the crime scene after the fact with Nicholas Kerr.
I know about your little killing group. Don't look surprised, man. You went back there, didn't you?
I saw the body. I know it was stabbed.
At that point, Connor Mason's friends, or the people he thought were his friends, have all pointed to him. They've all abandoned them.
Did you see the knife?
Yes. I don't know what happened to her.
I didn't believe him. He was arrested for accessory after the fact. Detective Marion Kane went out and tracked down Heather Parker and picked her up.
Why you're here is because you lied to me. You wish to talk to me.
We arrested Heather because she obstructed our investigation.
So we had come down to where we needed to interview Connor Mason.
We had established probable cause with the statements from within the group, and we felt comfortable making an arrest.
But just because you make an arrest, that we've seen so many times, that does not necessarily correlate itself to a conviction.
Because our physical evidence was not strong. We never recovered any blood evidence from Connor's apartment, and we had no idea where the knife was. We needed a confession.
Okay, I'm apparently not under arrest? No? Okay.
We're talking about the murder of Dwight Morgan.
Yeah, I assumed. If I murdered Dwight Morgan, I could tell you, but I didn't.
I think you did.
When I looked at him and how he answered stuff, it was almost like a cat and mouse game.
I'm sorry. I've told you all I can tell you.
That's an interesting statement. You've told me all you can tell me. That implies that you're not telling me everything.
No.
Yeah.
I told you all I'm going to tell you. That would be implying I know something else.
Both of them do.
Can means possible.
Yeah. Semantics. You know what I know? The fact of the matter is, he did it.
He thought he was smarter than us and he wasn't going to tell us anything. It was extremely frustrating.
Detective, I'm going to say this one more time. I did not do it.
I know you did it, Connor. I know for a fact you did it. I just want to know I gave you every opportunity to tell me why it happened. Because that makes a difference.
I think I should be taken home.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Are you putting me under arrest?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be under arrest for murder.
He seemed very much like a sociopath, and I think it would have been very easy for him to kill again. It was unusual for me not to be able to get along with somebody, and we needed a confession to wrap this case up.
Let's go, man.
So later that night, I went down to his jail cell. I was like, "Do you have something to say?" And he agreed to let me talk to him.
Detective King was either going to go in and make friends or he was going to irritate him and it'd be over. And that was probably the last time we were going to get to talk to him.
I do not like Detective Oak. You seem nicer.
Well, thank you. That told me exactly the route I needed to take. Not be Mark Oak. This needed to be a little less formal, a little more direct. The plan of attack here was to get him to admit to a smaller aspect of the case, like having possession of the knife.
We need to think of a reason why people are saying that you went to a hardware store or Walmart or wherever to purchase a fixed blade knife. Did you buy a knife?
No.
It's okay if you bought a knife.
I'd really tried to minimize the weight of what we're actually talking about. What we're really talking about is you pre-planned the murder of another person, but all we're really talking about in the interview is shopping.
It's not illegal to own a knife.
That's right.
So why are you hesitant about admitting about buying one?
Okay, I mean, I don't trust you at all right now. I mean, I heard someone say I have a plan for you. Seconds before you walked in.
I told you, this conversation between you and me. No one sent me down to talk to you. I can go home right the hell now. These people are concocting this big story about you, and you're lying to me about going to Walmart and buying a damn hunting knife.
Once we do find the knife, then we can match that to the item he purchased. This shows that he was fully involved in this crime.
I'm losing my patience. What kind of knife did you buy? I know anyway.
I can tell he's weighing his options. If I admit to it, am I admitting to the whole thing? He has got to talk. Now is the time. He needs to say it.
I'm losing my patience. What kind of knife did you buy?
Here we are. Finally, we've got our guy admitting to what we need him to admit to.
I know anyway.
Whoever I was to him, he liked it. And so for those fleeting moments, those fleeting minutes, he let down every guard, every wall he'd ever built up.
What's the harm?
I found a knife.
Great. Thank you.
I knew that we had him. That was a huge moment. That was a great moment.
Where did you buy it?
Walmart.
I got him buying it. What else can I get from him?
The ultimate goal was to get Connor to confess.
This deny thing isn't going to work, bro. I told you that. I'm not accusing you of anything.
You're not accusing me, but you won't let me deny it. So what's left for me? I'm done.
With what?
Conversation.
I just don't think Connor was ever going to admit to killing Dwight Morgan, regardless of who he was talking to.
But his admitting to buying this knife, coupled together with everything else that we had at that time, showed we had the right people in custody for this.
So on December 15th, all charges against Travis Jim were dropped. I'm glad we were able to get him justice.
Over a month after the crime, police have arrested 3 more suspects. 19-year-old Connor Mason with first-degree murder, and both Nicholas Kerr and Heather Holden for their involvement after the murder took place.
About 8 days after Heather Parker's arrest, Heather wanted to be interviewed again. Tell me about that morning.
I was excited. Like, he did it for me. I guess he thought it would make me happy. We didn't value life. We were disgusted with humans and living, and a lot of our focus was on just death. and what comes after.
They just had a dark mindset. When you hear things like that, those are things that stick with you forever. These kids' lack of care.
And he told me how he cut the finger
How did he do that?
while he was still alive.
He was still alive when he cut the finger off?
Mm-hmm. Connor's exact words were, "It was amazing."
Pure evil is what this is. There's no other word for it, in my opinion.
If we wouldn't have found him, I truly believe he would have done it again. Heather Parker finally gave us all the information we needed for a conviction. She pleaded guilty to the obstruction charge. She received time served.
Every day, every second, I wish that she would have turned around and done the right thing. But I was going to do the right thing with or without Heather. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Nicholas Kerr was charged with accessory after the fact. Close to 2 years later, he made the decision to provide us additional information, and that information included where he and Connor Mason had disposed of the murder weapon, the buck knife. And Nicholas got off with a 10-year suspended sentence for cooperating with us.
We were, in fact, able to recover a knife matching exactly what Connor Mason admitted to purchasing. The tip of the knife was missing. Re-examination of the x-ray that was taken of Dwight Morgan showed that there is a piece of metal embedded in his skull.
Which was a match. That was a huge piece of physical evidence for us. Shortly after that, Connor Mason pleaded guilty to the murder of Dwight Morgan.
Prosecutors say 23-year-old Connor Mason committed the crime for no other reason than the thrill of the kill.
Connor Mason received a life sentence, which was reduced to 40 years. This was without a doubt the most senseless act of violence I've seen. You know, we dealt with evil that day the best we could.
I'm glad the detectives stayed with it and worked it as hard as they did. They got justice for Dwight.
These guys in Edmond, man, they're heroes. All of them.
I played my role, and that helped answer for someone that had their life stolen. So absolutely, I'm proud of this. Absolutely.
Dwight was a guy that lived the way he wanted to live.
I think he enjoyed life because he was completely, in his eyes, free. His legacy is the challenge to the Edmond community to be a community, to love one another, to care for one another, and to reach out to people in need.
For more about criminal confessions, go to oxygen.com.
There's no doubt this is a homicide scene.
Her car's gone and she's dead on the couch.
Who would do this to her? There was nobody.
They had information on Patricia Dressler's death. Then, all of a sudden...
911, where's your emergency? Did you guys find the blue Taurus that was stolen from Patty Dressler's house?
they have the car on a traffic stop.
Put your hands on top of your head!
The stolen vehicle you're in is attached to a homicide.
Homicide? Okay, well, I'm the owner of the car. Hey, what's your name? Dwayne Davis.
This was a new name that came up.
What's going on? Murder. Oh.
911, where's your emergency?
We just came into a friend's house and she's dead.
Okay, where are you at?
We're in Cricket Reels.
So is she breathing at all?
No, she's dead.
Okay, all right. Does it appear to be natural, or you don't know?
Her car's gone and she's dead on the couch. I'd say there's foul play here for sure.
All right. What's your name?
Aaron Fralick.
It was about 11 p.m. I received a call from Detective Michael Schwamberger, who explained to me that he had been called to a death scene and there were some things that just looked out of place to him.
When I arrived on scene, I went up to the house. First things that we noticed was that the kick plate to the refrigerator was lying on the floor. There were 3 purses. One of those purses was spilled out onto the kitchen floor, and one of the slippers was located near the kitchen, another partway into the living room. It appeared that there's possibly a struggle.
When we got to the living room, we found the body on the couch. There were pillows piled on her legs. Left arm was hanging over. There was a robe sash on the floor beside the arm. This definitely was not something that looked like a person had just laid down to take a nap. My thoughts at the time were that there's no doubt this is a homicide scene.
I met with the friends of the family that had called in the incident. They were able to identify the victim as Patricia Dresser.
Patty Dresser was one of my best friends. Patty had a lot of friends. We jokingly called her the Kevin Bacon of our group because she connected everybody together.
Patty's personality was big. She would walk into a room and everyone knew she was there.
She was also a mom and raising 2 boys. Nick was getting ready to take off to go to the military, and Daniel had moved out. So I think with the boys being gone, she finally was going to have a quiet house, but then there was a part of that she probably didn't like.
Patty was definitely a people person. If she liked you, you were going to be friends for life.
What I remember about that evening, I got a phone call from Chris Dobbins, a friend of Patty and I's. She said that Patty was supposed to come over to her house for dinner and had not shown up. And then Kristen Fralick had called me and wanted to know if I'd talked to her. And I said, no, I hadn't been. Odd enough, Chris Dobbins just called me. So we both headed to Patty's house after that. When I got there were police officers there at the house. Kristen and Aaron were still inside the house, and I heard Kristen scream. One of the officers came out and stopped me and said, you can't go any further, it's a crime scene.
Rod Vaughter and the evidence techs were going through the scene and processing potential evidence.
There was no forced entry to this residence, which now tells me that this person knew her. We did try to check for fingerprints, but if the person has access to this house and has been in this house, no fingerprint, no DNA swab from this house is going to say they did it. So we have to look at the physical evidence that may be present on her. The marks on her neck caught my attention. You'll get a redness when somebody tries to choke somebody or strangle somebody. The marks were very noticeable, and they were very consistent with the robe sash next to her hand.
The pathologist was able to confirm later this was a homicide, as we believed. The robe sash was the weapon used to strangle her, and it had been wrapped around the neck twice.
Strangulation, that's up close and personal. Again, was this robbery? Was this something, somebody had a personal motive to do toward Patricia?
That was hard to know that you'd lost a friend, and the way that we lost her. Who would do this to her? There was nobody that would do that to Patty.
One of Patricia Dresser's sons, Daniel Dresser, eventually arrived on scene. I saw, as anybody naturally would with their own mother, a great concern. A lot of questions of how did this happen? Who is possibly involved?
The information that Detective Schwamberger had gotten from Daniel Dresser initially was that his mother believed that a person she'd hired to do some work for her, a Spencer Spielman, he was a friend of Nick Dresser's, had broken into her house the day before.
Patricia never reported the break-in. There was speculation that she wanted to handle the issue herself, with Spencer being a friend of her son, that she didn't want to get him in trouble.
She had mentioned Spencer on the phone a couple times. She had tried to help him out. She knew that he'd had, a past and had some bumps in the road. Nick, obviously being just like Patty, was the same way. He reconnected with this kid that, he knew from junior high and was going to help him out. So I think that's how they all got connected. She believed in just the true grit of people and honesty of people.
Patricia was a well-known person in the community. This was one of the nicest neighborhoods, so it kind of put the community on edge for a while.
Anytime there's a small town, anytime something happens, all the pressure is now on the police department to get this figured out. The biggest thing we knew is that the killer was still out there, and we didn't know what his next move was going to be.
Patricia Dresser's car is missing. We've got Spencer Spielman as a potential suspect. We've got people out looking at places they know where he has been. We don't know if there's any other suspects. We're trying to establish a timeline where Patty was and what she was doing and who she was with. And we discovered a CVS receipt on the kitchen counter from Wednesday night.
We know she arrived at the CVS in her car at approximately 6:09 p.m. We was able to see Miss Dresser in the store, and it looked like she was buying a couple of bottles of an alcoholic beverage, and she left at about 6:14 p.m.
That surveillance video gave us a time frame of when we last knew Patricia was alive.
On my way back to the Greenfield Police Department, I received dispatch. Somebody just called in. They need to speak to a detective now. I spoke to Gwen Rance. She said she has known Patty since she was 17 years old. She told me she had information on Patricia Dresser's death. I explained to Gwen that I really wanted to meet her at the police department for an interview.
The information that Sergeant Chittum had got initially from Patricia Dresser's friend was that we should be looking for two people, Spencer Spielman, as well as an individual named Charles Ernstus. First time we'd heard that name from anybody.
What makes you think that Charles had something to do with it?
He and Spencer are friends. They were bad, bad, bad. He's a scary person.
We've got information that you may have sent Patty a photo.
Did you guys find the blue Taurus that was stolen? Okay, well, I'm the owner of the car. Put your hands on top of your head!
We're racing against the clock where the suspect's concerned.
There was an iPhone and an iPad.
Only somebody who had seen the body, potentially the killer, would know that information.
Like someone died?
At this point in the investigation, there is no physical evidence. Yes, we have the strangulation. We do not have forced entry. We do not have miracle hair that every TV show talks about, or the bloody thumbprint on the counter. So we are still trying to put this together.
We don't think it's a random crime, that we believe that she was targeted for some reason. We're looking for Spencer Spielman and Patricia Dresser's missing vehicle. We've had officers all over central Indiana looking for it. We don't know if there's any other suspects. We were just reaching out for any additional leads that we could find. Patricia Dresser's friend, Gwen, believed that it was likely that Spencer was involved. She also suggested that we look strongly at an individual named Charles Ernstus.
Gwen told us that Charles and Spencer were friends with Patty's son, Nick. Nick is currently away at the Air Force, so Spencer helps Patricia from time to time doing things around the house.
She hired Spencer to do some work for her, maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
While he was at her house, she found him in Nick's room. Nick had this Tag Heuer watch, and she went in his room and she said, "Where's Nick's watch?" And all of a sudden Spencer said, "Oh, here it is." He found it like under the blanket, magically.
When she caught him with it, Patty knew then something was kind of funny. She felt so strongly about it that she even hid the watch somewhere else. Gwen also informed us about text messages between her and Patricia Wednesday, the day prior to the murder.
Day before yesterday, she said, "Someone's been in my house." She found the box for Nick's watch in the kitchen. And she tried to change her garage door code and didn't know how to do it, so she unplugged it. That's the last time I talked to her.
She was talking about Nick's watch that Spencer had been caught with previously. Patty was under the impression that he had the garage code, and she thought that they were going to steal it. What makes you think that Charles had something to do with it?
He and Spencer are friends. And they're both druggies and hoodlums. Yeah, no, they were bad.
What's some of the things she said about it? That you can
up.
Okay. Did she explain that at all? I mean,
One time, he sent her a picture of him in his underwear. Selfie.
really?
It was kind of weird. I mean, she was like, can you believe that he just did that?
While speaking with Gwen, she's very adamant that these are the ones that done something to her friend and that we needed to follow these leads.
This is Friday afternoon. We're looking for Spencer Spielman. Now we need to branch out and start looking for this Charles Ernstus guy and get him in and try and talk with him. Sergeant Chittum did locate Charles Ernstus.
He said, I'll talk to you guys, I'll do whatever it takes. So we transported him back to the Greenfield Police Department for an interview.
At the time that Charles Ernestus' name came up in this investigation, we had no physical evidence of any kind linking him to the case, other than the hearsay provided by Gwen Rant. But since this is really the first name outside of Spencer Spielman that had come up, we knew we needed to talk to Charles.
Detective Schwamberger and Sergeant Cutler led into the interview as a soft interview. They were just looking for information. So they withheld the fact that they knew that Charles had sent Patricia some inappropriate photographs.
There's some things we need to get to the bottom of. You already know it's a homicide investigation, okay? So just kind of run me from the start as far as what you know with the incident.
Okay, from the very beginning. So Wednesday around 3 or 4, I talked to my buddy Nick. He called me up. He said his mom's house got broken into. I told him, hey man, anything you need, let me know. I can go over to your mom's house tomorrow and check on her. And she ended up calling me later, and she told me that it was Spencer, like for sure, who came and broke into her house. She said, I know it was him.
Patty said that?
Yes.
Did she say how she knew that it was Spencer?
She was telling me about watching Nick had, and it's like somebody went rummaging through his room specifically looking for it.
There was a red flag raised when Charles mentioned the Tag Heuer watch. This appeared to be consistent with the information and text message described by Gwyneth, so I felt like I really needed to explore his possibility of being involved. Did you go over there at any point Wednesday or Thursday to check up on her? Or?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Run me through Thursday. What happened with you Thursday?
I didn't even talk to Nick Thursday. I just went to work. I had plans with this girl, Grace Abernathy. Hung out with her for a little bit. She took me back to my car around 11:30, and I drove home. Got home at 12. I fell asleep probably around 1 because Nick called me at 1:30. I never got the call, but he called me back around 9, and like when he first said it, I was like, no way, dude. Like I thought his next line would literally be, I'm just playing. Or something like that, no.
So Nick had told you that his mom
passed away.
Once he started talking with them, they confronted him with the photographs and wanted to know what his connection was.
We've got information that you may have sent Patty a photo. The information that we've gotten was a photo of you in your underwear.
I was probably freaking drunk or something.
And you know what?
Didn't know who she was. But, I mean, yeah, I do that kind of stuff.
Was there something between you and Patty?
No. I mean, it's not like she was what you would call a cougar for sure, but she was Nick's mom.
With the information about the selfie he had texted her, I picked up on maybe a sense of embarrassment. He seemed to be being cooperative. I didn't pick up any signs of deception. We didn't mark Charles off of our list of suspicious people, but it gave us a little bit more reassurance that our main focus was Spencer Spielman.
I knew that they would be releasing the house. And so my plan was to get a hold of all the girls and just say, hey, let's get over there and get the house cleaned up. I knew that if there was one thing that she would want us to do, that would be it. To not have her family have to experience that or see it. For us, it was very normal to take care of each other that way. So that's why we did it.
After the interview of Charles Ernstus, we've got all the autopsy information. We have not been able to find Spencer Spielman or the car. We have been up 36 hours roughly by that time.
We're all feeling kind of defeated. And then all of a sudden, we get information that they have the car on a traffic stop.
Turn the car, put the kids on top of their car.
We've got potential of having a suspect in the stolen vehicle. We want to find out who's in the car, why they've got the car.
Step out now! 911, where's your emergency? Did you guys find the blue Taurus that was stolen from Patty Dresser's house? I have no idea. Well, there's one sitting here at the Village Pantry on South 9 right now that it matches. What's the license plate? UJF691. Is that the car? I can't tell you that information. Okay, well, I'm the owner of the car. Okay, what's your name? Dwayne Davis.
I've been in the car business for 40 years. I'm general manager of a Ford dealership just south of Greenfield. Patty and I have been friends for 25 years, and we were together for 7. We had a joint property together. We owned the car together. Even though we weren't together anymore, we were still friends. We talked all the time. We were on great terms still. It was Thursday night, and Kathy had called me. She said they had found Patty on the sofa in the living room. We had just been told she was gone, but I hadn't seen her or anything, so it was hard to believe that this was really happening. I had been down to southern Indiana to Madison, and when I was coming back, I came up to the light at Davis Road and Highway 9 right in front of the Village Pantry. And I looked at the car in front of me, and I noticed the Hubler Ford sticker where I work on the car. And then I looked at the car, and it was a blue Ford Taurus, the same car that Patty and I owned.
Who's with the car? 2 white guys. If that's the car, I'll follow them real quick. They're leaving.
And then he turned left and went north into Greenfield, so I proceeded to follow him.
Where are you at now? We're coming up to the curve, coming towards... There's a police car right there.
Our units converge behind it, light the vehicle up, and perform a high-risk stop.
Turn the car, put the kids on top of their car.
We could see 2 people seated in the car. The officers called them out, driver first.
Step out now! Face away from me! Put your hands on top of your head! Drop everything in your hands now!
I could see immediately that was Spencer Spielman. This is huge. They called the passenger out. It was a white male. They took him into custody. Didn't have any idea who that person was.
Stop!
Is he another suspect, or is he just somebody that Spencer Spielman has picked up and taken for a ride?
Later found out that the other subject is Brandon Humphreys. This was a new name that came up.
Brandon was a wild card. We wanted to lock down his involvement first, see whether he was an actual suspect or not.
We knew the car was stolen. We had a lot of information. We did not want to let him know any of that. We just held everything back to give him the opportunity to tell us everything he knows.
Do you know why you're here? Why you were shot?
Absolutely not. I'm baffled right now.
Okay. Who's the guy that you're with?
His name's Spencer. I met him in Greenfield when I first moved in here.
For today, when's the last time you saw Spencer?
It had been Wednesday.
Okay. Where'd you see him at?
He just stopped by.
Was he in that car?
Yeah, he was actually.
Okay. What time was that?
It was like around 9.
Did you guys meet up tonight? Did you guys meet up yesterday?
He actually stopped by today. I said, I'm about to go sell my wheels. He said, well, where we're at, I'll take you.
Obviously, he had it today.
Yep.
What do you know about the car?
He told me it was his mom.
After we'd locked him into a statement, we decided that it was time to give him the facts of the case.
Cut to the chase a little bit. You said you don't know anything about the car other than it being his mom's.
I'm kind of already putting two and two together.
Okay. The car's stolen.
Awesome.
Okay. And you being in a stolen car doesn't look good. You understand that?
The prosecutor and I are taking notes of what's going on. We're watching the body language of Brandon as he's giving his answers, watching his facial expressions to see if his face is betraying something besides what he's telling us.
Well, I'm going to get straight to the point. The stolen vehicle you're in is attached to a homicide.
Homicide? Mm-hmm. Like someone died in it?
It's attached to a homicide where somebody was killed. Okay, and you're in that car. Do you see how it looks?
Brandon's face changes dramatically at that point. He appeared to be total surprise.
I feel like, in a sense, he was maybe holding back a little bit. Maybe that was to protect Spencer, his friend.
We let him know the potential of everything that he was involved with. I mean, this is a life-changing decision.
It was all out in the open then. He vomited information, basically.
There is something else. Because there's this Shell gas card that was his mom's. Okay. That was in the car that he'd been using all day today. Mm-hmm. There was an iPhone and an iPad. There is a Wi-Fi hotspot that he also told me that was stolen. And I'm going to just tell you this now, just in case it pops up in the future. Mm-hmm. I did buy a TV off him. He said it came from his mom's house. So now I'm starting to think if the car was stolen.
I recall being at the house. In an upstairs area, there was a large entertainment center that appeared to be a TV had been. What kind of TV was it?
It was a 55-inch Hitachi TV. And I took it to a pawn shop because I knew it was going to be money.
And when did you do that?
I did that Thursday morning.
Upon observing Brandon, his demeanor, and then statements thereafter, we did not think he had clear knowledge of everything that was going on.
It wasn't enough for me to mark him off my list as possibly being involved in the homicide.
Our number one goal at that point was to get Spencer Spielman talking.
I got a call from Dwayne, and he said they've got somebody. And so I knew somebody was there and they were asking questions. And I said, okay, well, we're coming. When we arrived at the police station, we were just waiting to find out who, number one, and that, what was the reason.
At this point in the investigation, getting ready to interview Spencer Spielman, we did have a fear that he wasn't going to talk to us, and then we were going to be stuck with pretty much nothing.
Spencer being the last one of the major players, this was going to be our last lead that we could follow.
Tell me why you think you're here.
I mean, obviously the car.
Tell me about the car.
I go over there to her house once or twice a week.
And we're talking about
Patty.
Patty, okay.
And I was cleaning, and she got into a fight with some old guy who was over there.
When did this happen?
2 days ago.
And that was what, Wednesday night?
Yeah, I was upstairs. She's like, "F you," blah blah blah. I went down. I was like, "I'm leaving." But she was fighting with this dude. She was drunk. She wasn't gonna drop me off. She let me take her car. She said just come back in the morning. She had to go to work.
This old guy that she was with, who is he?
I have no idea. When I was upstairs vacuuming, I heard her yell, "F you, John," like 3 times. So I'm guessing his name's John.
When you left, did you see anything in the driveway?
What? I think it was like an Expedition. It was really nice.
What color was it?
White.
Initially, we sent patrol officers to contact any houses they saw in the area. Sergeant Cutler locates somebody that has outside video basically right across the street from Patricia Dresser's residence.
This had already been viewed previous to us interviewing him. We knew there was no white car there.
We've got our first lie, so we can start breaking that down. But they go ahead and let him continue to lie and build on that lie.
What time did you get there?
What time did I get there? 4:35.
What was Patty wearing Wednesday when we went over there?
Black.
Was she wearing a red robe?
No.
Did she ever leave or anything?
No, not really.
So, You left 8:30 p.m. Wednesday. She said just bring the car back in the morning.
Yeah, she had to go to work. She usually leaves, I think, at like 8. So I got there at like 7. I waited for a couple hours.
But she would just never answer the door?
I honestly thought she got a ride to work.
Okay.
Then I went back, because she usually gets off work at like...
So you went back to Patricia's?
Yeah,
okay.
Probably 8:30 or 9. Lights were off, well, dim, but still no answer. I was like, oh, maybe she's out with that dude.
Okay. So now we're into Friday today.
Went to Brandon's, loaded up the rims for his car, went and tried to sell them. Pawn shops wouldn't give a shit for them.
When you guys went to the pawn shops, did you guys pawn anything else over there?
No.
We knew he was lying at that time. So it was a matter of letting him know that we knew different things had happened. Here's your deal, Spencer.
What's up?
We know you're lying.
I ain't lying about nothing.
You're full of shit. We've already been checking with the pawn shops. We know you pawn stuff. So you had to be honest.
And they're on video.
We've already talked
Not
about
shit hers.
You pawned the TV.
Do what?
You're asking that question because you're trying to think of an answer.
No,
you can hear me just fine.
No, I'm not.
At this point, we needed to try a different approach and different tactics. Sometimes another officer changing his demeanor, his attitude, the tone of his voice can make a difference.
During an interview, I'll play the bad cop. I'll let the suspect know that he's not in control. That way, hopefully, they will train more on the person asking questions and try to give him an honest answer, because he knows as soon as he lies, this guy over here is going to be yelling at me again. 55-inch TV.
55-inch TV?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell us about that?
I didn't think it was...
You didn't think it was relevant?
Yeah.
Where'd you get it from?
I mean, I acquired it.
You acquired it.
Where did you acquire it from?
I don't think it's relevant.
It's relevant because there's a TV.
It's relevant because the TV's from Patty's house.
What the
already confirmed that. Yeah, what the Okay, why don't you just try to be honest?
I didn't steal a TV from her house.
Then how did that TV get in your possession pawned?
They start confronting him with the lies, and he starts getting mad, and he starts locking down even more. The more they confront, the madder he gets, and the more locked down he becomes.
We know the answers to a lot of the questions we're asking, and this is a chance so we can know whether or not we can trust you. And right now, we don't trust you. Like you said, you got to her house Wednesday at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and she never left? That's bullshit.
No, it's not.
I know she was on video in CBS at 6:14 buying some alcohol in the car.
I don't know if she left.
You said she never left.
You said she never left.
And according to you, he was there in the white Expedition already.
We know that's not true.
Spencer is giving us these bits and pieces of the truth interspersed with the lies that he's also telling us, but we're not sure we're going to be able to get him over the edge at that point.
I kind of wanted to let him know what he was looking at. And I just brought it out bluntly.
What the is going on?
Murder.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Murder.
I didn't kill nobody.
Apparently you did.
The
You sit here and lie about everything else, why would you lie about that?
You stole her car?
No. What?
Broke in her house, stole her TV.
No.
Stole a car, stole her Wi-Fi.
I didn't kill nobody. Or steal anything.
Then you better tell us who did.
I don't f***ing know.
Yeah, right.
I don't have the balls to murder anybody.
Maybe you didn't mean to.
What?
Maybe this is your opportunity to tell us what happened.
I don't
If
know.
not, since you sit your ass in that chair. You know it. You sit there and thought it all up and you thought you had it all figured out.
No, I did
John.
not.
Who the hell is John?
I did not.
White truck, we got video. There ain't no white truck around.
I didn't
Tell us the truth. Save your life.
You.
We're going pretty much head to head.
It's obvious that confrontational is not going to work.
We have to take into consideration that if we scare him, he can choose not to speak with us at all. He can just shut us down. Tell us the truth. Save your life.
There's no doubt in my mind this is the killer.
We're sure we had the right person. but with no physical evidence. We have to get a confession.
Oh my God.
Our investigators are trained to try and start with one interview technique, and if they see that's not working, they change.
Yeah, what the are you talking about?
It's obvious that confrontational is not going to work. So they come back with Michael's going to be the good guy again.
As part of that strategy of minimizing and, in a sense, fishing, you throw information out there, and the person that you're talking to realizes that you have that knowledge. At that point, a lot of people will have the sense that they need to explain that piece of information.
The TV, we know, we've already matched the serial numbers up. We already know it's at the house. Did you feel like she owed you that and you weren't getting paid? Did she make an agreement with you? Spencer, you can have this TV. Was there an agreement between you and Patty?
No.
For you to take that TV?
No.
Then why did you take it?
Because I needed money. That's the only thing I took from the house.
Okay, when did you take it?
I didn't kill anybody.
When did you take the TV?
I don't even remember.
Was she home when you took it?
No.
How'd you get in the house?
How'd you get in the house then?
The garage door clicky thing.
Okay, now we're making progress. Yeah. He just confessed to the burglary. So now we're getting somewhere.
Instead of confronting him about these lies, they start being sympathetic to him and trying to downplay his involvement and make him feel more human.
You took the TV because you needed money.
Yeah.
You don't have a job.
No.
Right? Would you consider you're homeless right now?
Yes.
I mean, you're pretty much all by yourself then, right?
Mm-hmm.
A loner.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this one person, basically a saint, who helped you, gave you money, let you do stuff, and you could give a if she's dead.
It seemed like the more that he was challenged, the more he would shut down. But the more compassionate that I was being with him, the more information that he started putting out there.
We've gone over and verified the times on the video. There's no expedition there. Are you saying that just because you're scared?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't.
But there's no expedition.
He changes the story again. He admits to us that John wasn't true. So now we just have to keep him talking so we can put him there at the time of death.
What were you scared about coming up with a story about her getting in the argument?
Oh, she did. She was screaming at somebody on the phone.
But that was on the phone. Did you hear the conversation on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
That she was upset? Did she ever take any of that anger and turn it toward you? Like, did she tell you to get out of the house?
Pretty much.
So when you're in a house, she's just like flipping out on you. And at that point, she was telling you to get out.
Mm-hmm.
She's cussing at you. So you start getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever remember her falling? She had very distinct marks, like on here, like she had been grabbed or like helped up. Those are very just hear me out. Those are very distinct when we did the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we got to clarify, how she got those marks. Were you helping her? Because they're going to tell and there's going to be no other explanation. Mm-hmm. Did she fall down? You maybe help her up?
I think, no, she did fall. She knocked the chair over. Then I helped her up to the couch.
Okay.
So now he's helping her up. And then he helps her over to the couch. Again, the more we keep him talking, the more we're getting. And I think we're going to finally get close to getting the real story. Did she have the robe on when you picked her up and put her on the couch?
Yeah.
The robe, like the strap where you tie it, it was clearly moved. Did you pick that up and maybe hand it to her, try to help her get that back on?
No, I picked it up at one point and took it over there. When she was laying down, just put it by her. That's about it. Right there by the couch, I think, on the floor.
Were there any pillows on the couch?
Yeah.
Where were they at?
One was under her head. One was like right here on her head. I think there was one by her feet or on her feet.
So Spencer talks about walking her over to the couch with the injury and putting this robe sash on the floor and the pillows on her legs. That information was not released to the public in any way, shape, or form. Only somebody who had seen the body, potentially the killer, would know that information.
You put yourself right up to the point of death. You have done that. So now you have narrowed the window that much more of it can't be anybody else. We know she was strangled.
Not by me. Shit, if I did that, I'd remember it.
You're remembering so much more the longer this interview goes on. But when it started, you didn't remember nothing. Now we've got a whole beautiful picture laid out right up to the point of where you put her on the couch. And that's where she was dead, found dead. The pillows, like you said.
There's no doubt
that the whole time I was there, that was never around her neck.
Well, it was around her neck sometime.
I mean, it was...
Not at all. Not when I was there. All that. Can I have a cigarette, or is that not allowed?
We were right there. He just wouldn't give it to us.
He kind of started backing off again and kind of shutting down. He had asked for a cigarette a couple of times during the interview. So at that point, it felt like it was a good stopping point to take a break.
Taking the smoke break, it's always a risk. The suspect has time to think about what we've said. He's thinking, I've got to do something. Is that something going to be, all right, here's the truth, I'm tired of this? Or is that something going to be, I need a lawyer?
We go outside. I was friendly, non-confrontational. Spencer's sitting there. He's smoking a cigarette.
So I won't be able to get any of my out of the car, will I?
Until next week.
Next week? What do you mean? Well, it's on investigative hold. We're going to get a search warrant for it.
I don't know what it is about the word search warrant, but he turned and he went straight into the interview room.
I had pre-planned in my mind to go back in there and re-engage the conversation. And before I could even get sat down and situated, Spencer began talking with me immediately.
When I laid her down on the couch, like a few minutes later, she just came up freaking the out, hitting me and trying to scratch at me and I just... tightened it left. And I came back, and by that time, when I took it off, it was too late.
I mean, did you just around once or
twice, and then
he even used hand gestures that he wrapped the sash around her neck twice and then cinched it. That's things only the killer would know, and it was confirmed through the pathologist. We got it. We found the truth, and we got the confession.
You know what, Spencer? You're doing the right thing. Okay. I appreciate you being honest about that.
At this point, we were able to clear Charles Ernstus and Brandon Humphreys, and Spencer Spielman was charged with murder.
My friend and I were in the lobby just waiting until they came out and they told us that he had confessed. So that was sad why we were there, but happy they'd caught the guy. And then we walked outside and we got to the parking lot. The girls were all out there and smiles and hugs and crying.
You know, you just lose all your energy. I mean, that's just, you feel like deflated almost. I was glad that part was over, but you know, I still had that burning desire to know what was the reason. Why would you do this to her?
Listening to the confession at the trial was hard to believe because he changed his story so many times. And I'm not sure that we ever got the complete story.
We don't know what actually happened that night, but my theory on this is that after the initial burglary Wednesday, Spencer Spielman came back to the residence Wednesday night, maybe 9 o'clock. Patricia didn't hear the garage door go up, and he stole the car and was joyriding in it. When he returned at roughly 2:30 Thursday morning, Patricia heard the door go up and realized what happened, and that's when the fight was on. And it ended up resulting in the loss of her life.
Despite the best efforts of the defense attorney to sway the jurors' attention from the overwhelming evidence against Spencer Spielman, the defense attorney's client has told the jury that he did it. So after over a week-long trial, Spencer Spielman was convicted, and ultimately the judge sentenced him to 55 years at the Indiana Department of Corrections.
The detectives, the investigators, the time, and I know there were days in the beginning of that when they were collecting information that I found out later. They were working 12 and 24-hour shifts. That was the first act of petty kindness that we did after the trial, was we sent them all baskets of food and stuff, just because when you have police officers who are seeing somebody in your community taken, I think they have a will about them to make sure that it's done right. And they went above and beyond.
Patty's legacy is the lives that she's touched, her kindness, the way she's made so many people feel. She's helped people when they're down. She's picked them back up. And there are just so many people that will always remember that about her.
For more about Criminal Confessions, go to Oxygen.com.
There had been an elderly woman that was assaulted in her residence.
I've seen a lot of things in my career. I can't believe someone could do that to another human.
She is one of the most important people that I have ever had in my life. I couldn't breathe.
It was like a shot in the heart.
In the neighborhood we're in, it's a bad neighborhood. That's might happen to be the night that I should have stayed home.
I know that Mama got $6,500. She doesn't trust anybody.
I just need you to be honest with me. I'm gonna tell you everything.
I was not certain that she would survive her injuries.
You know, Frog, I know where you're going. I can't confirm nothing.
We knew beyond a shadow of a doubt he was lying to us.
Me and God had to have a conversation about all this.
I can't believe it.
Where's your emergency?
My mother's bloody. I don't know what happened. I just got in.
Slow down for me, okay? Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. It looks like the head.
Is she conscious?
Mama stopped, yes. She's moving around, but she's trying to touch the scars, and I'm trying not to let her do it.
What is your last name?
What?
Your first name?
Lee.
And how old is your mother?
She's 60.
All right, Lee. We've got your paramedics that can be en route shortly, okay?
On April 7th, on Sunday morning, I got a call from Lee Watts, who I was dating at the time. He was frantic. He told me that Mama had been hurt, that there was blood everywhere, and I told him to hang up and call 911. My son Jameson and I got in the car and we drove quickly. When we got there, it was surrounded by police and an ambulance with flashing lights. Lee was sitting on the porch with his head in his hands, and I ran to him. What's going on? What happened? What happened? And he said, someone attacked Mama. His mother was his world. It just broke him.
When I arrived at the house, I went in to see if there was anything I could do to assist Lee Watts' mother. There was no apparent damage to the door like there had been any forced entry. Blood all over the bed. I saw her laying in the bed. She was gurgling. A lot of people call that the death rattle. If you hear the death rattle, it's going to be pretty bad. She had a lot of damage to her head that you could see. It wasn't a nice sight. I began to notice blood splatter on the ceiling that is indicative of a blunt object being used. If you strike someone, and then when you raise it to strike that person again, a trail of blood can fly off the end. I've seen a lot of things in my career. I can't believe someone could do that to another human.
Ethel Darlene Adamson was a silly, over middle-aged pixie. She was known by everybody who knew her as Little Mama. I had just got through a divorce when I met Mama. And Mama was the light at the end of the tunnel. She is one of the most important people that I have ever had in my life. I have a son, Jameson, and he was 2 at the time. She was like a grandmother to him.
She was a very sparky person. She was always upbeat. She walked in the room and you felt that you were around somebody that you could trust.
Ethel is an amazing mother to everybody, but Lee was her pride and joy. He was the light of her life.
Lee loved his mom. If she asked him to fly to the moon, he would have gone.
On the 4th of July, Mama brought Lee Watts to my house. I liked Lee Watts immediately, and we started dating. When the ambulance left, Jay ran after it.
I tried really hard to catch it. I couldn't. And Lee ran behind me and he caught me before I got too far down the road.
Lee picked Jameson up and held him and told him everything was going to be okay. But to see your child run after his grandmother, it was devastating. Lee was definitely in shock.
Looking at the scene, I felt a heavy responsibility because I was not certain that she would survive her injuries.
Lee Watts and Vicki Hodges agreed to meet me down at the police department. I just needed to sit down and talk to them and get as much information as I could.
I kind of want to find out just a little background about Mom a little bit. Does she date or any just friends in general that come over often? No, sir. All right. Explain to me, like, what's your living situation? You say you don't live there necessarily?
Stay with Mama 3 nights a week. And stay with Victoria 4 nights a week. This last night happened to be the night that I should have stayed home.
During this time, homicide detective Eric Ewing would conduct an interview with Vicki Hodges to see if there's any corroborating statements or any indiscrepancies in their stories.
So you and Lee, you were saying a boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah, we've been dating since, he says July, I say August, so. And yes, I know about his record, and I know he's been in prison, and I know all that. And I also just think everybody deserves a chance.
I had known Lee Watts for a number of years. I had arrested him in the past for some burglaries, but I'd never known him to do any violent actions himself.
I have to tell you, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol, there's no anything you smoke outside, and it better only be a cigarette in my house, or we do not date.
When I met Lee, I could tell he was really making an effort to do right. He was attending church, he was making money, he was providing rent money for Mama. He tried really hard to let the past be the past.
Sitting down with Lee initially, my approach was to just let him explain to me where was he the night before, how did he leave his mother, just try to get as much information as I could.
Just prior to you leaving, you say you left at 12 p.m. How long had you been there yesterday?
And I was with her up until 12 o'clock last night. That's when I went to the warehouse.
Lee told us that prior to the morning when he found Ethel, he had been out scrapping metal at the old Frosty Moore building all night and had fallen asleep inside the building before waking up and coming home that morning.
He's working really hard. He is scrapping, and he does have several contracts to do work, and he's been doing really good.
Vicki Hodges told us that she was aware that Miss Adams had gotten a VA settlement that had to do with the death of her husband fairly recently, that could possibly be a motive for somebody to have broken in with the purpose of stealing that money.
I know that Mama got $6,500. I know she called me and told me. Now, she wanted to keep money around the house, and she doesn't trust anybody, and I told her to go put that in the bank.
She had told me she had got a settlement from the VA, but she never told me how much, because I told her, it's not my business, Mama, it's your money. I don't want to know anything about it. And I didn't. She's been out every day this week, or every day since she's gotten the car, buying things.
So she bought a car?
Yeah. Went to Walmart, buying all her groceries.
300 groceries?
Yes, sir. In the neighborhood we're in, it's a bad neighborhood. And she's going out every day buying new things.
Mama couldn't afford 2 or 3 cases of Diet Dr. Pepper, which was her favorite. But when she got that money, she went out and bought 20 cases. Oh, they were on sale, girl. Don't you even worry, she told me. And I told her, Mama, you cannot do that. Don't buy a lot of stuff and take it in bag after bag after bag. Don't do that. Because there were people in that neighborhood who would rob you for a dime.
There were leads to follow, leads to develop.
6 was another familiar character.
Again, come back with money.
How much?
Hundreds.
We found a claw hammer.
Something bad happened to his mother.
I don't know.
Did he sound,
He was scared to death.
There had been an elderly woman that was assaulted in her residence, and robbery was probably the motive for that assault. The victim was a female named Ethel Adamson. Ethel was still alive, but hanging on by a thread. There were a number of people that could have been potential suspects, people in the neighborhood, other people associated with Ethel that we may not have been aware of. While we were interviewing Vicki Hodges and Lee Watts at the same time, it really just came down to needing boots on the ground trying to gather information. Vicki was concerned that neighbors might have seen Ethel Adamson as behaving slightly out of the usual coming into the large amount of money that she had. So I instructed a crime scene team, in addition to processing the crime scene, to search the entire house to see if cash was hidden anywhere in the house.
We looked in all of the places that Vicki said the money may be. There was no money in the house to be found. But on the living room floor in Ms. Adamson's house, there was a claw hammer.
The hammer, while out of place, it wasn't gory or graphic, and it doesn't jump out as the weapon that was used for the assault.
The crime scene team still collected the hammer so that it could be examined by the criminal lab to see if it had any blood or trace evidence on it.
In similar cases, when we've sent off evidence to be processed for fingerprints or DNA, it has taken weeks and months to get results back from those analysts. Interviewing Vicki Hodges and Lee Watts separately and at the same time, we're able to get a baseline of any information that they're able to provide from the night before, as well as that morning.
So you worked at the warehouse for how long last night?
3 or 4 hours. There's a mat down there, I just lay down on the mat and sleep.
And you woke up around what time?
Around 7:38. Got back to Mama's around 8:45, 9 o'clock. As I went to put the key in the doorknob, it just pushed right open. That's when I stepped in. I heard Mama gargling and stuff like that, so I immediately went in there. And that's when I found her. First thing I done was call baby girl. She's a retired RN. Yeah, then I called 911.
The fact that he first called his girlfriend Vicki Hodges prior to calling 911, I thought it was very odd, not normal thing. His explanation was that she was a nurse and that he thought she could give good advice. As we're talking more, he says the last person he spoke with that night when he was scrapping metal was Vicky. He actually made a call to her on his cell phone. He says that he did not make any calls between then and the time that he went home to find his mother.
Can I grab your phone and you and I take a look at it together? You good with that?
I took that opportunity to ask him if I could see his phone to corroborate what he was saying.
Your call log starts at 9 o'clock. What happened to all the calls prior to that?
Prior to Vicky's call that morning at 9 o'clock, all call history was non-existent, and the 911 call was singled out and deleted. I immediately thought it was weird. If that was deleted, what else could have been deleted? Was he purposely hiding something?
Where's all the rest of the calls from last night?
I must have come out last night. I have a tendency to clean my phone out.
Okay, do you recall erasing it this morning?
No, sir, I don't. I called 911 from that phone.
Okay, I'm not doubting it. I'm just curious what happened to the call log is all.
One of the advantages of having interviews going on simultaneously is when one of the investigators in one of the interviews finds out a key piece of information, they're able to stop and relay that information to the other investigator, and that may be a piece that they can use to really break the case.
He called 911, but then he removed the call from his phone to 911 out of the call log?
It is a little odd, but he may have been shaken. I don't know.
Did he sound,
He was scared to death. That phone, he was high-pitched for him. Now, I have to tell you, y'all know Lee's record. I know Lee's record. He hadn't held anything from me. He would never, okay? Let me state that from the depths of my soul. I know him, if anybody does, and you can take that to the bank.
I wanted Detective Ewing to know how good Lee was. This man is going to church. He is paying his bills. He is providing for his family. I knew Lee would never harm the only one who ever lifted him up.
I had just this thought of when you and I would come in here, we'll be able to discuss details and everything's going to make perfect sense. You see what I'm saying? It just, now that I'm in here, it just is slightly confusing, especially when it comes to the phone. You see where I'm coming from?
I knew that he was leaving out information. It was at this point that I decided to change my strategy and actually confront him with the inconsistencies that did not make any sense.
Your mother was already in bed by the time you left, right? Yeah. And you locked the doors and your deadbolts, everything. Yes, sir. You walked to the warehouse. Is there anybody that knew that you were going to the warehouse?
Yeah, my girlfriend knew I was going back to the warehouse.
Okay. Why at midnight?
That's when I get most of my work done.
Why?
It's just easier and cooler in there to work.
Did you work with anybody last night?
No, sir. I work alone.
Normally, Lee goes to the warehouse. Sometimes he'll leave at 11, sometimes he'll leave at midnight.
How does he usually get home, though?
He walks.
What were you wearing when you went back to the warehouse?
I was wearing these black slacks and that purple shirt.
Were you wearing the same shoes?
Yes, sir.
Why so dressed up at 12 o'clock at night and scrapping metals?
I think I was going to go to church this morning.
What does he normally wear when he works?
What he has on, except for his dress pants. He had his dress pants on because he was going to church, and his purple shirt's probably still on the porch. He had already changed, probably at the warehouse.
So everything Lee Watts is telling us, although it seems a little off, is backed up by Vicky.
How long ago did you buy that shoe?
These were given to me by a friend.
But you worked in them last night?
I walked around in them down last night.
What does that mean, you walked around in them?
Just picking stuff up, putting it in piles. Really not any hard labor.
I'm going to look at him. Pick for the phone.
It did stand out to me that he was wearing these nice clothes, these nice shoes, and there were no scuff marks, no dust, no dirt. At this point, I decided to just be quiet and create a moment of silence and give him an opportunity to feel that silence with anything he might want to say.
Can I say something? You're going to take this the wrong way, Detective.
Please.
I respect you doing your job. And I've just got this funny feeling that, I don't know.
You got the feeling like I'm accusing you?
Yep. I love my mother with all my heart. I would never lay a hand on her this way.
I do not doubt it. Do not doubt it at all.
In this early stage, we had to consider just about anybody a suspect. But in the back of my mind, it stuck out to me like he felt a little bit guilty. After interviewing Lee Watts, Detective Ewing and myself decided to take Lee to the warehouse.
Detective Duke and I wanted to check out Lee's alibi.
When we arrived, Detective Ewing and I walked with Lee to the front of the building, It's an abandoned building that had been boarded up, and there was a piece of plywood that was covering a hole in the wall. Lee claimed that that was his entrance. He crawled through the hole. He came to the front door, and as soon as he opened it, I could see that his pants were immediately dirty and dusty, and his shoes were scuffed. Immediately, I knew there was no way he could have been wearing those exact clothes to scrap metal in that building. It was at this point that he was the #1 suspect. To me, it was clear that Lee Watts was not given 100% of the truth, but the investigation was still fresh. There were leads to follow, leads to develop. We started talking to people in the neighborhood to see if anybody had seen anything or heard anything.
One neighbor recounted seeing Lee at the home about an hour to 30 minutes prior to police being called.
The gentleman next door said to me that he had seen Mr. Watts leaving the house about 6 in the morning. That didn't sit real well with me because that's not the way I understood Mr. Watts' original story.
On April the 9th, we learned that Ethel Adamson had passed away in the hospital. I personally was kind of heartbroken. This mother suffered the way she did and couldn't speak for herself. I felt a sense of responsibility to find out who did this to Miss Adamson. And this immediately changed the investigation from an aggravated assault to a homicide.
When I heard that Ethel Darlene Adamson had left this world, I couldn't breathe.
I didn't know what to do. It was like a shot in the heart. I took it pretty hard, for sure.
As lead investigator, it was my job to meet with Lee in person where he was working that day and inform him that his mother had passed away. He fell down to his knees in grief and had implored me to find his mother's killer.
Part of most investigations, if there are phone records that can be used to assist in the investigation, we subpoena those records. On April 11th, we received the results from the subpoena of Lee Watts' phone activity and phone records. We found that there was a lot of activity on the phone and the phone's location that traveled a larger distance than just the area that Lee claimed to have been at all night.
This was a critical point in the investigation because we knew beyond a shadow of doubt he was lying to us. There was one number that stood out to us on the records because it was called multiple times that evening. It ended up being Jesse Buckley. So I called the number, and he subsequently agrees to come in and speak with us. We did learn that Lee often went by the street name of Frog.
You know Frog? The white guy? Frog. Thing on that. I ain't heard of him, but I met him one night.
Jesse quickly explained to us that he was approached by Lee, and that Lee was looking to buy drugs to party that evening.
He was like, hey man, y'all know where to get something? So I told him where to get something. But you took him? Yeah. Okay. How much money do you have on him? Do you remember? Oh my goodness. He kept leaving, going to get money. Kept leaving, going to get money. But he told me he'd text me once he get the money.
Lee, who was in fact not just in one location, but he was bouncing around all over the place. And we knew that Ethel had gotten several $1,000s, and that Lee is just not known for carrying a lot of money around. It appeared to us now that Lee had been taking her money to supply his drugs.
Something bad happened to his mother. I know where you're going with this. I don't know. Okay. I can't confirm nor deny. All I know is that after he kept going and coming and going, I left the house. I know he's supposed to have went to A&W Hotel after that. This girl named Six, she said she was gonna call y'all. He went to the hotel at 6. You know 6? Yes.
We knew Six, and we knew Six as Satara.
Six was another familiar character in the District 2 area, so we were able to locate her relatively quickly.
Knowing that she was there, knowing she was with Lee that night, we knew that talking to her was our next step to see if she could give us another piece to this puzzle.
I just need you to be honest with me. This last Saturday night, Sunday morning, there was a dude you were with, you remember his name? A white dude? Frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole night, finna tell you everything.
Okay.
He was buying dope. He kept coming back from his mother's house getting dope. Coming back with money, getting dope.
How much?
Hundreds.
What was he wearing that night?
He had a t-shirt and some jeans on.
Just t-shirt and some jeans? Always the same thing from the first time you saw him to the end?
No. Mm-mm.
What do you mean?
Different shirts every time he came back.
In our mind, there's only one reason why he would have changed his clothes. It was because he may have victimized his mother and got blood splatter all over him.
He just said he just wanted to smoke in peace. He got some more dope from the little dudes. We went to the room.
To which room?
A&W.
Okay.
Yeah, because I said you did something wrong. I don't know. I got that intuition sometimes. And I told him whatever it is, God bless him and still forgive him.
And what did he say?
He started crying.
This really takes us to almost a point to where we believe he would have had a natural reaction to victimizing his mother and feeling bad for what had just happened.
Did Frog himself pay for the room?
Yeah.
He did?
Yes.
Well,
we checked in at it was 4 or 5 in the morning.
4 or 5, okay.
And then after that, he said, I'll be right back. And it was like 8:30. I'm going to my mom's house to get some more money. That's what he said.
Did he ever come back?
Satara further corroborated what Jesse had told us about staying at the A&W motel. We were able to send investigators over to that motel and confirm through their records that he had purchased a room for that night.
He did something to his mama, didn't he? I could feel it.
We're trying to figure it out.
That's scary.
Jesse Buckley and Satara, both of them were very forthcoming in our interview. And everything that we've developed absolutely points right back to Lee. We know Lee is lying to us, so we need to confront him on his broken alibi to get him to tell us the truth.
So the cell phone records showing that Lee wasn't where he said he was could have just been the fact that he was ashamed or scared to tell Vicky that he had been out partying or in fact been out with other females. So given the phone records and the new information, I wanted to bring Vicky back in to confront her with the information. Vicky's a pivotal person because since the incident, she has been with Lee almost 24 hours a day, and she would be a first-hand account of his behavior and actions since the time his mother was found.
Okay, you all have spoken obviously a whole lot since this whole incident happened.
I didn't kind of. He asked me point blank if I thought he was guilty.
What'd you tell him?
No, because I don't.
I want you to tell me where in your heart, based on what he's told you, what you feel or whatever, Lee spent Saturday night before coming home and finding his mother Sunday morning.
At the warehouse. I wouldn't believe him any other way.
Okay.
I'd always believed that Vicky cared about what happened to Ethel and wanted to get justice for Ethel. I just felt like Vicky had unintentionally been providing a security blanket for Lee, and it was my plan to take that security blanket away.
Do you love Lee?
No.
Did you love little mama?
Absolutely.
And you told us that Saturday that if we figured like we felt like we knew it hurt her, that you would accept
You give
it.
me 1 ounce of proof and I'll help you.
All right.
You understand me?
But
son, you better have it.
Okay, now I want you to listen to me.
I'll never forget it. He said, Miss Vicky, you said that if we had even a breadcrumbs worth of evidence against Lee, that you would do whatever we ask. And he said, I have a whole loaf.
I'm going to tell you that Saturday night, Lee was in the projects, using drugs and tricking with prostitutes.
And you know that beyond a shadow of a doubt.
I'm going to go bring you Lee's phone records.
Okay.
All right.
I want you to do that.
Hang on a second.
Because then I may have to go home and sit down and be sick.
Okay, you hang on a second.
Okay.
He left the room and me and God had to have a conversation about all this.
Lord, it just can't be. I'm sorry, Father. It just can't be. He would not do this. I can't, Lord Father, I can't. I can't believe this. Lord Jesus, Father in heaven, this just cannot be.
I stepped back into the interview room, and she and I went over the phone records together. You could see realization slowly starting to set in with her.
What I want to point out to you is one particular phone number.
I don't know that number.
No, you don't. Belongs to a guy named Jesse Buckley.
Don't know him.
You don't know him. You're right. Lee gives him $200. They score Lee
Didn't have that much.
Follow with me.
I'm on it.
They score Lee $200 worth of dope. And Lee has smoked all the dope at his house. So they're working on getting some more dope, and Lee goes and gets some more money. And Lee provides more money, and they smoke more dope. A girl named Six. Do you know who Six is?
No, never heard of that one.
Eventually, Lee and Six leave and go to the A&W motel and get a room.
It was absolutely important that she just hear the cold, hard truth about what he had actually been up to that night, and the fact that he had a whole bunch of money to be able to do it with.
So what you're telling me is you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that a man I've led around my child and in my home
I'm going to let you draw your...
my best friend.
I'm not done. I'm going to let you draw your conclusion. I think he's correct.
Been in my home.
I think he's
been in my home.
I understand that, Vicky.
He killed my best friend. Okay, I can't handle any more today. I'm sorry, I cannot.
All right, just hold tight for me for just a second, okay?
I will be sick in just a few minutes.
Okay, you want the bathroom?
No, I just want to...
Vicky, tell me what you need.
I want my friend back. He lied to me. He told me he was innocent. He told me he didn't do it. He told me he loved his mom. He told me he would never hurt his mom. He told me he loved my son. He told me that everything was going to be okay, that he was going to be all right, and that he was going to be who he said he was. And he lied. And if he lied about that, then he lied about hurting someone that I loved more than my own life.
We're going to resolve this tonight, I feel like. But if for some reason we don't, this is what I want to tell you. And I know it hasn't been intentional, but you have provided protection for Lee.
I didn't mean to.
I know that you didn't, because you believed in him. But you have to understand what I'm saying. You're the only one. This is where we are.
I wanted her to know that there was nothing at this point in time she would be able to do to assist or help Lee anymore. That what's done is done, and for her sanity and for the sake of her child, she needed to get up and remove herself from the situation.
You've given me the ounce I asked for. I'm going home now, if that's okay.
I felt bad for Vicky and her son Jameson because they had both become so close to Lee and trusted fully in him. I never really had a doubt about Vicky, but at the conclusion of this interview, it was 100% clear in my mind that she had no knowledge before or after about what Lee Watts had done to his mother, Ethel.
When I left that room after talking to Detective Newman, I got out the front door of the police station and collapsed in the parking lot. I did not make it to my car.
Even with everything that we've developed thus far in the investigation, it's really important to push Lee towards a confession. There's enough evidence to detain him, but if Lee Watts doesn't confess, we could lose the whole case.
You swear 100% hand to God this is the truth?
Yes, it is. You swear, with your right hand to God, it's all the truth.
And at the warehouse, I kind of spelled some bullshit. Give me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Because we are investigating the murder of your mother.
I love my mother with all my heart. I feel like that it's the same questions over and over and over. It's running me dry.
Whether he confesses or not could determine the outcome of the case in court. My plan is to become more confrontational with him and work towards that confession and work towards the truth.
My right hand on the Bible of God, I am telling you the truth.
If you can sit here and look me in the eye and say, my right hand on the Bible of God, I'm telling you the truth, you're not the kind of person who I thought you were, Lee. I thought that you had some shreds of dignity left. I thought you felt remorse and guilt for what happened to your mother. You asked me, you asked me yourself, catch my mother's killer. And I can tell you who your mother's killer was.
Please do. It's not me, sir. I didn't do anything. I didn't kill my mother. I love my mother.
I had accused him of murder at that point. And I wanted some shock value. I placed that picture in front of him so he can admit it not only to me but to himself, because it's a pretty heinous act.
And what I told you right on the piece of paper when you took your notes is the truth.
This is such a bullshit lie. Lee, it's ridiculous. It's insulting is what it is. It's a homicide investigation. You think I don't know where you went? What times you went there? You had this in your pocket. You are lying, Lee.
I'm trying to bury my mother in a respectful way, and I'm being accused of something I haven't done.
Lee, you were smoking crack that night with these drug dealers, laid up with a prostitute. Hotels keep records. We have the cell phone records with the cell site tower locations and all that. So you can talk all the shit you want, but I can prove. Walking over here, walking over there. And then, hey, he was over here talking to this person. Let's go talk to them. Oh, yeah, you had all these hundreds of dollars. You gave Lee crack. Boy, you sure have a reason to lie, huh?
I didn't have hundreds of dollars on me, sir. I didn't have more than $25 on me that night.
Crack dealers don't take credit, Lee.
You say that's bullshit. Then no disrespect to you. I think this detaining is bullshit. I don't think we have any evidence right now.
It's not one thing, Lee. It's building on top of building, on top of building, on top of building, until we have a friggin' mountain of evidence that points to the killer.
And you're saying all this points to me?
Yes, sir.
After continued denials, I decided to use minimizing words and frame his intent differently. It's a lot easier to say out loud that you knocked your mother out than full-blown murdered her and caused her death.
I believe you love your mother, Lee. I see it on you. And some of the things that I think about when I think about a man like you, dealing with the stress that you deal with, having the past that you've had. So maybe you didn't even mean to kill her. Maybe you just thought you were knocking her out, like you see on the TV 100 times. You know, hit someone in the back of the head, boom, they're passed out. So maybe that was your intent. But if that's what it is, you need to tell me that. Because if it's not what it is, it looks a whole lot worse.
All I can sit here and say, sir, is I love my mother from the bottom of my heart. I did not calculate anything. I didn't want her money. I've always told people I don't want my mama's money. All I want was my mama's love, and she gave that to me, and I gave it to her.
Okay, if you didn't calculate harming her, how did it come to pass?
How did what come to pass?
What did you hit her with?
I didn't hit her with anything because I didn't do this.
I try to appeal to Lee's higher self. If you hold somebody to a higher standard, sometimes they'll step up to that standard and hold themselves to that standard as well.
We all make mistakes. We all have low points in our life. But what determines the type of man we are is how we proceed from this point on now.
Can we have this conversation after I break my mother? Because I know what happened that night.
I think you need to tell me what you have on your mind. We can't wait to hear that till after you bury your mother.
But I'm doing this for my mother.
I'm doing this for your mother.
You're detaining the wrong one, sir.
Who should I be detaining?
I don't know, and I want to help.
I want Lee to feel like the walls are closing in on him, and the only option that he has is the truth.
I didn't kill my mother, okay? Yes, I smoked a little dope that night. It's not enough to drop me to kill my mother.
Lee admitting to a little bit of drug use was a huge development because it was a polar shift from his total innocence. We were a lot closer to the truth, and it was time to just let him talk.
I got back to the house. I gave him a call what time it was. Mama was asleep. I went around the other side of the bed. I reached up on her pillow and I got Mama's money. I never hit my mother in the head. Please believe me. But I tell you, I never hurt my mom this way.
And I believe a lot of what you're telling me. I think it takes a lot of personal courage to talk about the things you're talking about. And you have my respect.
But you still believe it. You still believe it.
I don't believe that you meant to hurt your mother.
I just sat here and told you the truth.
Yes, you did. There's just
one piece missing.
It's not easy to admit to things that make you look bad for anybody. I feel like acknowledging that is important, but not relenting in the fact that we need to end with the ultimate truth.
I didn't do this.
I didn't do this. I didn't do it. Lee, you can tell yourself that all you want. It doesn't change the facts.
You could visibly see the change in his demeanor and his posture. He looked defeated and visibly worn down. What he can't say with words, he's saying with his body.
Can I smoke a cigarette? Please?
We can go ahead and smoke a cigarette, but I'm going to have you in handcuffs while we go out there.
There was a lot of intensity and a lot of pressure and a lot of coming around to more of the truth from Lee, so I felt that honoring his request for a cigarette and taking a break was a reasonable request.
I have to have somebody with us, for security purposes.
During the smoke break, Lee crouches down and leans up against the door, so I just kind of knelt down beside him. He'd been sitting for 3 hours speaking with Detective Ewing, and now he's talking to a different voice, and he just broke. He admits to me at that point that I hurt my mama. He had said the one thing that he never wanted to say.
So Lee just confessed to hurting his mother. Big problem, we didn't have it on recording. And in today's world, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen. We are 5 days in the investigation, and we had worked very hard to get Lee Watts to a place emotionally and mentally where he's able to confess, but it's outside on a break when he chooses to do so. I had the delicate task of getting him to restate on camera the hardest words that he's ever said in his life. This is literally the moment of truth.
I admire your courage and your bravery and your self-sacrifice for being able to tell the truth, and I know it hurt. But we need to finish up and then be able to move on.
Came back, she was asleep. I sat around for a few minutes, and I went in and I hurt my mom.
He expresses that he hurt his mother, which I feel is a minimization of the act, but I'm okay with, because that's what he needs to say in order to be able to say it out loud. And he's still taking responsibility for his actions. Regardless, it's a confession.
Why do you think you hurt her that time?
I don't know. I really don't know.
So you didn't plan it out or anything?
No, I didn't plan it out. I didn't.
But how did you hurt her?
I don't know how many times I did, but I hit with a hammer.
To perpetrate an act like that on a total stranger would be heinous, but for the person to be your own mother, it's unfathomable.
I just wanted somebody to love me. A hug, a kiss on the head, especially from my mother. But all I wanted to hear was those 3 words. I love you, but it never hurt me.
It was offensive to me personally that he would try and make himself somewhat of a victim, because in all the time that I've known Lee Watts, wherever he fell down in life, Ethel was always the one to pick him up and at a minimum allow him back in her house and put a roof over his head and food in his mouth.
I feel like obtaining that money so he can go party was what drove him to commit the act that night. And had he not been in that situation, had he not been doing drugs, Ethel Adamson would still be alive today.
When Lee Watts confessed to killing my best friend in the world, my sister in faith, I can honestly say I knew hate for the first time.
I felt betrayed. Like, how dare you? You hug me and hold me and tell me it's gonna be okay when you did it.
The DNA analysis and the fingerprint analysis on the hammer revealed there was Mrs. Adamson's blood, DNA, on the hammer, but there were no prints linking it to Mr. Lee Watts, her son. Mr. Watts' confession was very important in returning the verdict.
When the jury watched the confession of Lee Watts, you could tell by the body language of almost the entire jury it was over. The confession of Lee Watts was definitely the keystone to this case. It made this case.
I do not recall Mr. Watts showing any remorse or emotion during the trial.
The jury convicted him of first-degree felony murder and convicted him of especially aggravated robbery. Lee Watts was sentenced by the court to life with 25 consecutive. His parole date is 2077.
We see a lot and do a lot in this profession, but still the memory of a son that was able to kill his mother with a hammer, it sticks with you forever.
I can't fathom why a son would do that.
This case was very important to a lot of people, so having the resolution at the end was extremely important for the family, but it was also important for the investigators involved in this case. In the end, I believe Ethel Adamson got the justice that she deserved.
For more about criminal confessions, go to oxygen.com.